You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. In this show, we go beyond the campfire stories to bring you firsthand encounters from people who say they've seen something impossible, from backwoods trails and remote mountain haulers to quiet farms and crowded highways. The stories come from everywhere, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. These are the voices of the people who've lived it, so settle in, because today you'll hear another account that just might change the way you see the woods forever. So stay with us. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Mr. Brian Williams today from down there in the great state of Missouri. Brian is an individual. He's got Native American heritage. He was in the 82nd Airborne Division as a paratrooper. He's a farmer and an avid outdoor enthusiast. We were just talking about fishing before the show started. So it's a privilege to have you on the show today, Brian. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Absolutely. There's a lot of Missouri stuff that has come up on the show recently. Brian, it sounds like you had a very interesting sighting and maybe some other things going on as well, but feel free to take us back to when this occurred for you, Brian, and we'll be right there with you.
Okay. This was the fall of 2017-18. I was not retired at that time. I was still working. Took my wife to work every morning. She had to be at work at 4 o'clock. I took her to work. And this was not a one-time drive on a gravel road. We lived up there. I've owned farms for years and years. I've farmed. I've been on my land all night long, plowing, disking, planting, combining, and harvesting, doing whatever. I've never seen anything like this. I was driving my wife to work. Yeah, it was about 3:30 in the morning. We were 7-8 miles off of any paved road. We were back in gravel roads off of 116 highway in North Missouri up by Lathrop. And it was fall. The corn was high on one side of the road, and it was almost time to harvest. It was brown. I do remember the corn was almost ready because I talked to my wife about it before. And something come out of the corn, and being from North Missouri, my initial thought was, oh, deer. Hit my brakes, and it come across the road in front of us out of the corn on 2 legs. And it kind of really took me by surprise because I've been in the wilderness my whole life. I've been to Colorado and Wyoming camping for 10 days at a time, multiple times with my boys hunting for elk, mule deer, fishing trips. I've been to the Blue Ridge Parkway camping up in there multiple times. Never have I seen anything like that. And my wife was riding beside me, and I was just really dumbfounded. I didn't say anything for a minute. And I turned, and I watched it go across the gravel road, and when it got to the other side, there's a little ditch and a barbed wire fence. And for those people that say it could have been a kid in a costume or a person in a costume, it would have had to have been by far the best athletic person in the world, because this person or this thing, it came out of a cornfield, jumped across a ditch in a single stride, smooth as could be. And it wasn't up and down. It was very smooth. It was very, almost like it was gliding. And I never did see the head. The way the headlights caught it, I caught from about above the chest and like right up to about the neck down. And I'm guessing the height on this was about 6.5 feet tall, a little taller than me, but not big, like 8 or 9 feet that I would have thought. I never said a word about it. I thought, did I see what I just thought I saw? And about a minute or two later, my wife said, what was that? And I said, did you see that? And she said, yes, that was on 2 legs. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going crazy. So we discussed it the rest of the way, and basically decided it probably would be in our best interest not to say anything to the local farmers because they'd think we were crazy. We really hadn't said anything except to our family members ever about this. The only people that knew about this up till today, I've never spoke about this public, was me and my wife and our immediate family and our real close friends. That's it. But it crossed the road, and when it got to the other side, like I said, there was a ditch and a barbed wire fence. And it didn't pick up speed. It didn't get a good straddle for a jump, and it was just so smooth. It's just, I can't really explain how smooth it was. It just hurtled and went over that ditch and over that barbed wire fence in one step. And I'm telling you, people can't do that. This could have been a person. And once it got to the tree line, it was just gone. There were some pretty good sized trees in the tree line. It could have easily hid behind a tree or something, but I know as soon as it got through that fence and into the trees, it was gone. We never seen it again. And I drove my wife to work and we discussed it. And like I said, we said it probably wouldn't be a good idea for us to talk about it with all the other locals. I got on BFRO website and looked that up because I had no idea there had ever been a Bigfoot sighting in North Missouri. I knew South Missouri and Arkansas had several, but never in North Missouri. And come to find out, in the same amount of time, and you can check the BFR website, the BFRO, that is Clinton County, Missouri, there have been several sightings up there from truck drivers driving down I-35. They've reported Bigfoots right on the side of I-35 that I had no idea of. Plattsburgh was 5 miles from my house, where I mushroom hunted for 15 years. They've had several Bigfoot sightings come out of the swamps down there in the bottoms where I mushroom hunted. I had no idea. They had a Bigfoot sighting from a truck driver from a milk company. It crossed the road 0.8 of a mile from my farm going towards my farm. So there's been activity up there for a long time. I was just ignorant to it. I had no idea. But now I'm retired to South Missouri, and there's activity down here as well. That's pretty much my story. We're still hearing stuff down here, like we talked about before we came on the podcast. August 9th through the 15th was my anniversary. Me and my wife went to Branson, Missouri, and during that time there was another Bigfoot sighting by several people at, I believe it's called Top of the Rock, his state site or state public land, whatever it is. I think it's called Top of the Rock. But it was all over the news down there. A group of people went up and a Bigfoot got up out of the river area. There's waterfalls in the river from what I understand. A Bigfoot got up out of that area and ran up into the woods in front of multiple people. Several people seen it. So it's not just a one person deal down here. There's several people been having encounters.
Is that the place where you can drive golf carts through the cave?
Probably.
Yeah.
I know we've got a lot of big caves down here. I know they got one that actually they do the cave tours with Jeeps.
Okay, cool. I've always wanted to do the golf cart thing. Maybe I'll get to do that someday. But that is wild, Brian. What a wild story. And you are right. There are definitely sighting reports in northern Missouri. Not as many in southern Missouri, but I've had someone on the show recently that had a sighting up in Clarksdale, which is not too far away from where we're talking about today. And then you've got Monkey Mountain up there, up by Savannah, maybe, Amazonia.
Savannah.
Yep. But why come forward now? Why wait so long? And then why is now the right time to come forward and share what you guys experienced?
To be real honest about it, before I farmed up there, and I thought I'd just be ridiculed. Really and honestly, I thought it'd be a lot of ridicule. People would think he's on drugs, he's a drunk, something's wrong with that guy, and I really didn't want to deal with it. I retired and moved down here, and everybody that knew me where I was at knew that I was Native American. I'm a veteran, and probably a lot of my beliefs come from my Native Americans. And as I'm sure most of the listeners are aware, there's not hardly a tribe in North America, not the United States, North America, that does not have a belief, a history, a folklore of either good or bad interactions with a Bigfoot type of creature. And they have multiple different names for them, but through my heritage and my whole life, my family has said these are real. And I've been brought up believing that, but we just don't discuss it. Taboo kind of thing to discuss.
Absolutely. I think, especially if you go years and years back, people just weren't talking about it. But so you're saying that you remember in your family history, there were also other people that would have encounters too, or they were just discussing about it?
Yes, my aunt is still alive today. She lives in Arkansas, and this is probably 40 or 50 years ago. Her and her husband went fishing down there, and I have no idea the location. They were going to a river somewhere that had an old log house abandoned on it, an old cabin of some sort. They got down there, and they said something came out of that cabin when they pulled up on two legs, and it wasn't human, and they turned around and left. And that's my aunt, and that's been 40, 50 years ago. That's many years ago. So, yeah, we've had that in our family for generations and generations. My mother is a full-blooded Halapu Indian from Newfoundland, Canada, which is an island 90 miles off the coast of Nova Scotia. 90 miles out into the ocean. Our heritage on that island has Bigfoot on that island. How is that possible? There has to be something. There has to be. And after I seen it with my own two eyes, there's just no way. There's no way it can't be real.
I'm not surprised at all, really. I've talked to individuals in the past where, you know, even around the Lummi Reservation in Washington State, the San Juan Islands, and you have sightings of them swimming around the area and around those islands. So I wouldn't say it's out of the question to have sightings as well in the opposite side of Canada on the islands over there. Going back to the sighting that you and your wife had, how many seconds would you say in all you were able to have a visual of when it crossed the road?
Probably, in all realistic, probably three seconds, 3 to 4 total. But the first second, honestly, a brown animal comes out of a cornfield, my brain goes to, it's a deer. And then when it come across the road on two legs, I don't know how to explain it. I was dumbfounded. That wasn't supposed to happen. That should have been a deer or an animal I'm used to seeing, not something on two legs covered with hair. I can tell you that. But it was there, and I saw it.
Absolutely. Did you notice what it was doing with its arms as it crossed?
Yes, the arms swung the whole time. The arms were swinging pretty wide. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't like a person walking. If you're at a regular walk, your arms barely move. This was like, maybe its balance was in its arms or something. I don't know, but its arms were very active, very active. And its waist was not like when I run, I'm all up and down. Its waist was very smooth and steady across there. It wasn't up and down. So when it crossed that road, it wasn't like a deer bouncing across the road. It was almost like it glided across the road on its legs. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. That is something that usually always comes up. Witnesses will say it looked like it glided almost like maybe it was a cross-country skier. Just very strange
almost
detail.
like. And I will say, I've talked to only my wife about this, but whatever we've seen, like I said, it wasn't 8 or 9 feet tall. It was a little bigger than me, maybe, and the build on it wasn't ginormous. It was stockier than me, but not ginormous. Me and my wife have talked about it, and I am fairly certain what we seen might have been considered a juvenile, a young adult, something like that, because it was definitely not an 8 or 9 foot animal. And I don't believe it was a female because it had a chest like a man. It did not have breasts. I do know that for a fact. It did not have breasts like a woman. It had a chest like a man.
Okay. Gotcha. So defined pectorals like a man would have. Did it seem to be covered with hair all over, or are there parts that you noticed were not as hair covered?
Yes. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's knuckles. On every ridge of its knuckles, it's regular knuckles, like if you make a fist, and then where your fingers bend, and then where your joints bend. Everywhere he had a knuckle or it had a knuckle, it looked like they were just calloused, and there wasn't no hair on that, but everything else had hair. Now, I do the hands. I've talked to my wife about it. It looked like a construction worker that's worked 150 years. They got them big, strong man hands. And this was its hands really did stand out. They were probably quite strong, I'm going to guess. But the way it carried itself with its shoulders, the way it moved, it was a very agile, quick, and nimble animal that was very capable of going through thick or crappy ground with not slowing down too much at all. It was, to say the least, impressive.
I don't think I've ever heard a detail like the knuckle ridges being calloused before. That's pretty intense.
They were dead in my headlights, and I remember going from, here comes a deer, what is that? And I remember the hands specifically because I was thinking the calluses are on the wrong side. They should be on the inside, not the back side. But if it actually is a primate of some sort, that kind of makes a little bit more sense to me, really, to me. So I don't know.
I think I get what you're saying, because if it does have a primate features or habits, then those calluses might be from the knuckle walking. Is that maybe what you're thinking?
That's kind of what that. I don't know if it climbs trees or whatever. Me, I'm banging my hands all the time. My hands look like crap, and I'm an old man. Something that lives and does everything with their hands, it'd be 10 times worse in my theory, I would think.
Absolutely. So were you able to see the other side of the hands as well, or just the outside with the knuckle ridge?
All I could see was the backside. I never even, the way it crossed the road, the other side, I could see the movement, but for whatever reason, the outside arm towards the vehicle, my truck, I caught that arm, and I really locked in on that hand because it was a pretty unusual. It almost didn't go with the body, to be real honest, because of how callous the knuckles were.
Interesting. Did anything stand out to you about the type of hair it had, length or color or anything regarding that?
No, the hair was a light brown, a little redder than deer, a little redder than a deer's color in South Missouri here. But the hair was not like, I didn't see any like big mats or big chunks of hair that were all nasty. It almost looked like a thin head of hair all over its body, but a thin head of hair. It wasn't, how do I say it? It wasn't like a wolf's coat or another animal that would be, you would expect to survive through winters in a real heavy coat. It was almost like a person that's losing the hair on top of their head. It's thinning out all over their body. It's hard to explain, but it was completely covered in hair, but it wasn't super, super heavy, long hair. Let me go with that. It was shorter, and what I seen was pretty clean. There wasn't no mats, briars, nothing. And that's briar country. There's a lot of briars up there. Deer and stuff, you almost never see a deer with a briar on it. I don't know if it's because of their fur or what, but when you kill one during deer season, you'll find them on their belly and they're underneath. But when you see them, you almost never see a briar on the back of a deer or that. And maybe that's the same thing. I don't know, but it did not have any clumps, anything. Its fur looked good. I would say if I was judging it as an animal like a coyote, its fur looked good. It looked very healthy. Judging from what I saw, there was absolutely no problems with this animal whatsoever as far as a gimpy leg, a bad arm, anything to slow it down, nothing. It was prime. I don't really know how to explain it any better than that. It appeared to be whatever. It was very healthy, very agile, and in good shape.
So that makes a lot more sense how you're very sure that you were able to see defined pectoral muscles like a male if the hair on it was almost like a thinning coat of hair.
Yes.
You would easily be able to see muscular definition around the body as it ran.
Yes, and the body wasn't like an older person that you can tell their muscles are gone and their physique kind of goes downhill no matter who you are. It happens. This was like an 18, 20, 23, 25-year-old that are still in the prime of their life, coming up young and healthy. It had a good-sized chest on it, but it had a man's chest. It did not have women's breast. And I've looked at that Patty video hundreds of times, and that, to me, looks like it has women's breasts on it, to me.
I would 100% agree with you on that. That's without question.
And it was probably, I'm going to guess, 30 to 35 yards in front of my truck. This wasn't a long way away. It wasn't like all the way at the very end of my lights. It came out in good light, and the reason I couldn't see its head is because the body was in really good light and the head was still in the dark. I couldn't see the shape of the head, tell if it was like elongated or a normal head, or I couldn't tell. I knew it had a human type of head, but I really couldn't tell. I could see the body and it was gone just that fast.
So that makes sense as well. So really you were about the length of a tennis court ahead of you, because that's about 25 yards. So yeah,
yes,
you easily could have seen what crossed in front of you for sure.
And like I said, I've been in the woods my whole life. I grew up with the animals all over North America. This was nothing I have ever seen anything. It was definitely a animal that I don't know what it was on two legs. Let's go with that. And for my heritage, I would have to go with a Sasquatch. That's the only thing I can think of.
You did already mention that it seemed like it was gliding, but was there anything else that you noticed about the way that it moved, like the way it was moving its legs as it was running or walking across?
No, it was running. Like I said, there was no up and down. It was real smooth. But its legs, it wasn't like if you were in mud and you were high stepping, having to pick up your feet real high. Its feet wasn't coming up high off the ground. It was very fast and smooth. And before it jumped the fence on the other side and that creek, there was a person, a human, any human, would falter a step, get ready, prep for a step. They would, you get ready to jump. You prep, you get that last good jump, and then you bound. It didn't do that. It just stayed steady and went right over. It is hard to explain. I'm having a hard time putting that into words.
Sounds like it was definitely moving with purpose, and nothing was really bothering it. It just was like, I got to get across here. I'm going to go for it. Yeah. Wow, Brian, what a wild sighting. And at a time at 4 a.m., you're not expecting that. You're probably just, let me get back to bed, or maybe time to do the chores after I drop my wife off.
And I've even thought about people going, maybe it was kids. If you say something, people go, maybe it was kids in an outfit. Well, what kid's going to go out in an outfit at God knows what time at night and sit there till 4 o'clock in the morning in the fall when it's cold? I don't see that happening. No way. Miles from nowhere on the gravel road? No way. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, you're right. They wouldn't stay out that late.
And there's no way that it could have been a person the way it went across the road and across that fence. So that would totally be out of it.
If you could put yourself back in that morning in the truck, is there anything else that you would have done differently in that situation if you could?
If I didn't have to go to work, I would have went back and looked for tracks. But I don't know who owned that property, and I didn't want to just stop in the middle of the night. And I was on my way to work as well. I took my wife to work, and then I went to work, and we blew it off and never really went back. We crossed that place every day. Never seen it again, and never have since then. So just one of them weird deals.
Would you ever want to see something like that again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would definitely like to see something again.
It really is a fascinating account. And Brian, I want to say thank you for coming forward publicly after such a long time and finally being able to share. I appreciate that. And I know the community and people in that area appreciate knowing that something happened as well. So you're now spending time down in southern Missouri, correct?
Yes, I'm retired down to the Lake of the Ozarks region.
That's great. So the Bigfoot things that you've been hearing down there, are these from people that you've actually talked to, or this is stuff that like it's in the news, it's being talked about in the community?
No, these are actual. When we put our home in, the next morning they were hooking up our water lines, our electric lines, trenching all that in. The night before, we stayed at our place in a camper run with a generator. I went out in the middle of the night. I was going to fill the generator with fuel, and I heard some screaming, and I thought, what is that? And when I went outside, my hearing isn't really that great. I hollered at my wife, and I told her, I said, come out here and listen to this. And we both listened to it, and it went on for a good while. It would scream and then be quiet, scream and then be quiet. But whatever, it was probably 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles away. It wasn't right with us. But the next day, the water company man who lives 0.5 mile down the road, he asked me if I'd heard them screams the night before. And he was asking about that and asking, what was that? He's from Indiana, and he said he's never heard an animal like that in his life. So it's been going on down here. Other people have heard it, and it continues to go on.
Wow. What a welcome to the neighborhood for sure. That is extremely intense.
And we're only, how far was it for us to run down to Arkansas to about 3 hours from Arkansas. We're 3 hours north of Arkansas.
Okay.
But one thing we do have here, and we get a lot of bears migrating from Arkansas up to this area because of our berries. We have blackberries that grow wild here, and there's just acres and acres. They're a nuisance up there. There's so many of them. And the bears come up here, and they're just really coming in. It's a big deal to see bears up here, but we see 2 or 3, 4 a year. Why wouldn't, if that food supply is that valuable, why wouldn't another animal migrate through that time too and take advantage of them berries? I've thought about that several times. It's something I thought about.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I'm sure, do you guys have a pretty active deer population down there as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's perfect then. My goodness. Yeah. Wow. It'll be interesting what you continue to hear down there over the years as you hang out down there in the Lake of the Ozarks area, which from what I hear is a great area to look for Bigfoot at, and especially since you've been mentioning some things yourselves. But
it's really blown up since COVID. A lot of people from city areas have wanted to move down here and get away from those city areas. And believe it or not, you can just look at BFRO and all the different counties around this area with people putting in new places on that, land that's been vacant for years and years. There's sightings blowing up everywhere. You can't hardly go to the Lake of the Ozarks, to any of our little antique places, our little stores that sell goods and whatnot. That everybody down here is starting to carry Bigfoot memorabilia. It's a big thing. The Smoky Mountains and the Rocky Mountains. Me and my wife been on vacation. 10 years ago, you never seen that. You go up there now, every store has Bigfoot memorabilia, Bigfoot stuff for sale. I think it's just becoming more and more widely known across the United States and Canada that this is an actual animal that is alive. And I really think the only reason it has not been brought out is because the logging industry has fought it so hard. Because if it was ever brought out as a real animal, they would have to be protected. The first thing they would do, by common sense, my thought, would be protect its property, protect where it's at, which would mean stop logging. And the logging companies would spend any amount of money to not let that happen.
It's definitely something that I've thought about myself, and I've heard quite a bit as well. But I think that you're absolutely right. Things are starting to come literally out of the woodwork. I'm starting, man, the conversations I'm having off air are very intense. Park rangers, etc.
Right.
People that can't come on air yet, maybe someday,
right.
But people are definitely starting to realize that, yes, there's something out there. It's okay to talk about it. There's multiple places in the Pacific Northwest where they're starting to become protected. Stuff is starting to escalate, I would say, for sure.
Another thing you might want to really look into is Canada is in court as we speak, trying to make Sasquatch, Bigfoot, however you want, a protected species. They've been fighting it in court for several years now. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that is doesn't take a lot of research to figure that one out. It's been to court. They have DNA. What primate animal comes from North America? There is no other primate than human beings in North America, supposedly. We don't have a breeding population of big monkeys here. So what other primate would they have DNA from Washington, British Columbia, and all those areas from?
It's wild.
Makes sense to me.
It really does. And people can check out, there's a few different maps out there where you can see sightings. There's one on my website of all the shows, almost all the shows I've done so far. It's BigfootSocietyPodcast.com. There's the Bigfoot Mapping Project. There's the BFRO has maps. There's a lot of different resources you can look into. But, man, Brian, what a really interesting conversation. Thank you for sharing what you've experienced over the years, and just another sighting from down there in Missouri, a state that really is getting more and more active. And thank you for coming on the show, Brian.
Not a problem.
We'll be keeping in touch, Brian.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Did you have a Bigfoot story to share, sir?
I do not have one myself, but my grandfather had one.
Oh, okay.
You can hear me good, right?
Yes, you sound great. Go right ahead.
All right. So, my grandfather, when he was a young man, either late teens or early 20s, he lived in a town, I believe, called Arnaville, Louisiana, somewhere around there. And him and I believe one of his brothers were riding horses along this, either it was a cornfield or a sugarcane field. I can't remember the exact details. But the field they were riding through had been harvested for hay. So there's all these hay bales everywhere. And as they were riding, he said that this large, hairy woman, is what he called it, walked out from behind the hay bales and let out this crazy scream and then ran into the field. So him and his brother went, okay, what's that? And they went to go check it out. And they found that the side of the hay bale had been torn out and bedded down, like something had been sleeping there. And he said it smelled super bad, which of course is like classic Bigfoot stuff. Now, to me, what makes this somewhat credible, he's long passed away, so I can't ask him again. But I did ask him years ago how it went, and that's pretty much what I remember him saying. And the reason I find it credible is because this would have taken place around the, I think, late 40s or early 50s. And before that point, the term Bigfoot just didn't exist. And he never called it a Bigfoot. He always called it a hairy woman. And according to my mother, that story, she'd heard it a few times, and he'd never changed any details. And it wasn't something that he told me or my cousins or anyone while we were growing up to spook us. It was something we had to ask him about, and he would just tell us normally. There was nothing embellished or anything about it.
That's wild. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's an area I haven't heard about yet. My goodness. How did that affect you after hearing that?
I thought it was just an interesting story. Me personally, until I see one in person, I can't say with confidence that I believe that they're 100% real. But I'm leaning toward the possibility of the creatures existing. Because in my
Gotcha.
opinion, it's just undiscovered hominid, which is somewhat far-fetched, of course, but it's really not that far-fetched. And I do find it interesting how his report does like line up with others, especially with the wordage. I feel like if he was making it up, he would have called it a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or the popular names.
Sure. Absolutely. Did anyone else experience anything weird in that same area?
Not that I know of, and apparently that was the only time he ever had something like that happen. His brothers are long dead too, so I can't ask them about it. It's really unfortunate that I can't go and ask them for more details because I would
No,
really like to get
absolutely.
more details on this.
I appreciate you coming up. Is this a conversation I can share on the Bigfoot show that I have?
Yeah, absolutely. And another important thing is at that time, and even today, that town and the towns around it are very rural. Talking like nothing but farmland, forests, and small cities. Like just there's not a lot of activity going on.
It makes sense. Then that was a perfect place for it to happen. Definitely. Thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Thank you for having me.
Hello.
Hey, Mario. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, and you?
Good. I saw your comment and we were able to connect this time that you had a sighting in California.
Yeah, me and my brother's friend, we were on our way back from dropping off my brother at a club, and we were on our way back, and we got to right there on 14 and the 5 freeway interchange, and right before Santa Clarita, and it was like 4 in the morning, and I was driving on my buddy's pickup truck, and we were just driving along, and I like way ahead of me, I seen something in the middle of the road. And I was like, what the heck is that? And we come pulling up, getting closer, and I started slowing down. And next thing you know, it was dark, but yet there was some light. And we rolled right up to it. And I had this thing right on the passenger side of the truck. He was like at the fender when I pulled up. And I'm not making this up. This is totally for real. And it's like we were going like about 5 miles an hour. There was no one else on the freeway. And I was like in the driver's seat, like trying to look over the steering wheel and up to try to see his face, but I couldn't. And what I did notice was that the hood of the truck went up to about mid-thigh to whatever was standing out there. And whatever it wasn't wearing clothes, but it had been fur. It was just so real that it was like almost unreal. And I was trying to look at his face, and my buddy that was sitting next to me, he's like trying to climb over me because it was right outside his window, and he's yelling at me, Mario, go! And I'm like, hold on. And I just couldn't anymore, and I threw that sucker in the first, and we burnt rubber out of there. It was crazy. It just stood there, and I remember looking back at it, and it would just continue to stand there as we drove away.
Wow, that's intense, Mario. What year was that again?
That was around like 99.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right.
Were you able to see anything to its face at all?
No, to be honest with you, no, I was trying to. I was trying. I wanted to see its face, but I did see the legs up to like mid chest. And that's about as far as I could get. Like I said, I was like trying to look over the steering wheel and up at an angle to my right. And yeah, I couldn't see his face. I wanted to see his face.
How wide was it?
Wide? Oh, I'd have to say. When I pulled up to him, as I pulled up to him, I'd say it was about 4 feet wide, maybe three and a half, 4 feet wide.
Oh, wow.
This thing was huge. It was huge. I was literally craning my neck, trying to look up, and I couldn't see his face. All I could see was like his mid chest, and that was it. In order to see his face, I would have had to have backed up, and yeah, I stuck around as long as I could, and I was like, okay, I'm out. You burnt rubber out of there. My buddy was like, he was crawling on me, like yelling at me, get out of here. I was like, hold on, man.
That's so wild.
It was. It truly was.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing what happened to you back in 1999. I appreciate it. Would you mind if I use the audio from this on the Bigfoot podcast that I have?
No, it's cool.
All right, man.
What you're doing is pretty cool. And just
Yes,
tell
sir.
you, I mean, part of me wants to say it was something else, but what else could it have been? I mean, it wasn't some guy, not that big. It wasn't some like a homeless person or anything like that. Not that big and not that hairy. But he's definitely out there. Or they're out there.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Mario, I appreciate you coming up and chatting. Thank you so much.
No problem. Take it easy.
Hey there.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. I saw you wanting to come up to share something.
Sure. I'll tell you my story.
Okay.
My first encounter, anyway. It was like 97, 98. I was in Lake Louise, Alberta. I was sitting on a loading dock. Had this thing doing a spider crawl towards me. I'm looking down from a loading dock. Sorry, my wife's just getting in the car here.
Oh, you're good.
It's a Sasquatch thing. I'm telling them my story. So anyway, I'm on a loading dock. This is it's pavement behind because trucks back into this loading dock. And this thing is crawling like a spider. All I saw were the body was probably 6 inches off the ground. The arms were outstretched. It looked like a huge insect. And 20 years, I didn't know what I saw. I didn't know about the spider crawl. So that was my first encounter. I didn't see any, it was black. I couldn't see any details. I ran down the stairs beside the loading dock when it went to the left, which would have went out of view to me. I ran out and it should have been there, and the thing had vanished or jumped or moved that quickly. It started going left when it saw I was coming towards it. So I didn't even have time I had no fear. I didn't know what I was looking at. And like I said, 20 years went by, and then I started listening to podcasts and heard about the spider crawl, and I'm like, bingo, the light went off.
Wow. That's up by Banff National Park, right?
It's part of Banff. Yeah, Lake Louise is part of Banff. Like I said, it wasn't even in the woods. It was on the pavement. Like, I just didn't know what I was looking at because I didn't know they could crawl like that. And it was actually Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles. When he told his story, that's when the light bulb went.
Sure.
That's what I saw.
Wow.
That's number one. And then, do you want to hear more?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to hear whatever you have. Yeah.
Yeah. About 21 years ago, we were camping up in Squamish, BC. I'm in BC. I'm BC Sasquatch man, by the way.
Okay.
So we're at Alice Lake. My wife, yeah, it's a campground. My wife and my newborn are asleep in the tent with me. And I used to have sleep apnea. I slept terribly, but I would just snore. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, I felt the ground moving, like something walking, definitely bipedal. I could hear it breathing. It had the classic breathing sound. It rubbed the tent. I actually slapped the tent, and I heard and felt it run. Like the ground, like if you're in the Pacific Northwest with all the deciduous trees, the ground, like if you jump on the ground, you can feel it. Like there's some vibration.
Yeah.
It's not settled soil. So I heard this thing run off. And so that was my second encounter. I'll guarantee that's what it was. And then I actually, on my TikTok, there's a video where I think I caught one making some noise because I had a gifting area. Used to leave toys and little treats and stuff. And I'd go back and things would be gone or moved, or there'd be feathers there instead of what I left. Usually Stiller J feathers. I found a series of 3 of them a number of times. But anyway, I was actually, because I do toy photography as a hobby, I was actually filming a Bigfoot action figure at the time, but this was at my gifting area. And so I got there, and one of these marbles that I left there had moved 7 feet from where it was up on top of the log where I always do my photography. And when I touched the marble, something blasted off. And that's when I hit record on my phone. I'm like, it's going to happen again. I just knew it. And yeah, like a minute later, there's another call. I've sent it to my friends that are hunters. I have friends that are bird watchers. They're like, it's not a known bird. There's no elk in North Vancouver. That's where I live. It's a strange call. And I captured it.
That's awesome. Is that on your TikTok as well?
Yeah, it's somewhere on my TikTok.
Okay.
It hardly has any views, funny enough. I was on From the Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
With those
that's a good
guys.
show. Yep.
Yeah, I was a guest on that. We talked about, because I've had the UFO stuff, the ghosts, and Sasquatch stuff throughout my life.
Wow.
So,
what started first for you?
the first thing was I levitated once. I was in my backyard. I don't know if you remember, people used, like we lived in the country, so we didn't have cable. We had those old antennas that capture some channels for you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a ladder that's set up on the side of your house. And I was out in my backyard. I was probably about 6 or 7. And I started floating up, and I was able to reach out and grab the aerial. And it had rungs like a ladder, and I was able to climb back down, and I went in the house.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I was probably 12, 15 feet in the air. So that happened. And then UFO stuff. I've seen stuff in BC. I've seen stuff in Ontario. Just crazy. I sent the From the Shadows guys one of the videos of a UFO as well. But yeah, just lights sporadically, like hovering like you've seen a hummingbird, how they can move like just very sporadic. I was doing that with lights, and it seemed like there was some intelligence. Like when I saw it, I could feel, it's weird, but there was a connection. I knew that it knew that I saw it. And that's when it went from like pretty much standing still to out of sight in the blink of an eye. I watched it just move like nothing, no technology we have that I'm aware of.
That's some wild stuff, dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Jay, thank you for coming up and for chatting a bit. What's the name of your TikTok channel so people can check that out?
Yeah, it's BC Sasquatch, man.
All right. Yeah, keep in touch,
A lot
dude.
of it's toys and stuff, but there is occasionally I'll put some stuff. I haven't been active for about a year. I got one time I got scared out of there for no reason. I just had this fear overcome, and to me it was warning me about something else. That's the impression I got from it. And I really haven't done anything since. Being completely truthful with you, it's been about a year since I've done any activity.
Hey, that's all right. Sometimes you need to take a break, and there's nothing wrong with that, man. Do you mind if I use this audio in the Bigfoot podcast I have?
No, go right ahead. Yeah, that's
cool.
Totally fine.
Awesome, dude. Well, thanks for coming up. Podcast? It's called Bigfoot Society. You can find it on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any of those.
I might be following you. I haven't been listening to podcasts either. So anyway, have a good night, man.
You too, Jay. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.
Hello?
Hey, Sperry. How are you?
Yes, I am good, sir. How about you?
Doing great. I saw your comments. So you are from up there in Alaska. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And are you saying you're from near like Portlock?
Exactly. The closest village right next to it. That's where my ancestors migrated from, was from Portlock. That story that happened there, I'm part of that tribe that was moved from there because of that happening there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I think there might be some audio coming in on the background.
Hold on.
Do you have a TV on?
Let me turn it off. Hold on. Let me shut this down.
Thank you.
Okay. There we go, sir.
Can you...
Oh, sorry.
So it sounds like you have some things to share. I would also be interested to hear what you know about, or your version of what happened to the people that lived in Portlock as well.
Okay, so I'm writing a book, rewriting of one that I've read. It's been written in a few of our village books here in the village, of the stories of how it was destroyed by this evil entity it was a town that was formed by carry workers, lumberjacks, people that are trying to make a booming town happen, gold miners, miners, and fishermen. And anyway, they moved into Portlock, and they built a community there, and for some reason or another, it started like the loggers in the woods were disappearing, the ones that were making like lumber and using sawmills to build the houses down there, and they started to disappear, and they'd find like parts of their bodies on the shoreline and in the creeks, like an arm or a torso or just a leg or something. That's the stories that's written there. I'm writing in my book, and I haven't published it yet because I love to write. I'm like a quiet writer, but anyways, yeah, that's what happened. Is they just said that everything was left as it was when they went to go check on that town. They said the pots on the stove were still cooking, but nobody on the whole village was abandoned. Everyone just picked up all their stuff and got out of town there and moved like up north to where I live now. It's called Nanwalk in Port Graham, a little south of Homer and Soldovia. Yeah, we're all people that live here, and I heard there were like Spanish ships that were the ones that they brought the migrants to that area before that all happened, and then after it all happened, they all moved up towards Homer because they were terrified of that place. 2 years ago, I got this dog from Homer. It was a husky, and I let my daughter walk it outside in the evening time by my yard, and I live on the outskirts of our village near the dump area, and she had come in. It was like 9 in, say about November time, and it was a little bit snow out on the ground, and she took him out, and 10 minutes later, she came back in. She was crying, and she asked her, I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "There was an ape out there, a gorilla by the side of the house in the bushes." And I said, "What was it?" I made her explain to me. I said, "What did it do?" She said, "It was sitting there watching her, and then it stood up past the bushes, and it started growling at her, and tried to grab her, and she came running in the house. And she was terrified. And the next day, my brother came by the house, and I told him about what happened. And he went out by the window where I thought I had seen something that night, like I'd say glowing eyes or something in the window looking in, because I had a headlamp on. And right below that window, it was like a 6-foot-high window, and there was like a single footprint in the mud, probably about a size 15. I have the picture of it. And my wife had some pictures of it down below our house in the bushes. You could see its face. It's really weird, but and I went out. We have this lake system up above our village, and I went up there on my 4-wheeler to get wood one day, and I found another track, and I took another picture of it. So I got a couple of tracks in my phone here that I have documented. Yeah, that's what I was just going to share with you guys. So I'm right now. It's about that Portlock village that disappeared. It's because my family's from there, that were part of the descendants that happened to. So he is here. He's my nephew's like hear him up at our lake system. He whistles, he knocks on woods, and the other night there was like 2 of my nephews. They were like about, one was 12 and the other one was like 7, and they came running down from above where they were fishing, and they said they heard like howling, and it turned into a high-pitched whistle, and it made them like terrified of their boots, and they ran back down to the village. They didn't want to go back up there anymore. And this was like about a month and a half ago when we were fishing for the last of the salmons of the season, pretty much. Yeah.
Does that happen a lot up there where they try to take females?
Yes, you're right. You're very much right, because I have 4 daughters and my wife, and it stalked around my yard because it would see my daughters, I'm pretty sure, through the windows at nighttime. And I could feel it. I could feel it outside of my house, and or hear it sometimes too, like walking, like heavy footsteps. But it was like peeking in the window at my daughters or my wife. So that's what it seemed like to me, anyway. I feel like it was stalking the girls.
Wow. But Sperry, that is extremely intense. And so you're down on the far southern peninsula of the Kenai Peninsula, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There's no way to our village but by boat or a small Cessna plane. You can't drive.
Wow. Okay. So you're stuck out there, literally stuck out there with the Bigfoot.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Wow. Thank you for coming up and for sharing. And when you do get your book published, can you reach out to me? You send me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or send me a DM on here. I'd love to know that it's out.
For sure. No problem.
Awesome. And do you mind if I share the audio from this conversation on the Bigfoot podcast that I have?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. I don't mind.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming up, sir.
All right. You have a good night.
Did you hear about the Bigfoot sightings in Arundel Mills in 2000? No, I didn't. Where is that? Is that in Maryland? What? It's an outlet center. No, I haven't heard about this. Let me look.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Are you coming up to share a Bigfoot story you have?
Yes. It was a long time ago. It was in the late 70s, anywhere from December 77 to before December 78, because it happened before the blizzard of 78. What it was, I was staying with me and my sister, stayed with my grandparents after Christmas on their farm, which was in a rural area of Kentucky called Sperry. And Sperry is close to Cynthiana. In Cynthiana, it got famous because of The Walking Dead. But anyway, this was a house that was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There were 4 rooms on the bottom, 2 rooms up top. My sister and I were sleeping in the room with the wood-burning stove. I was on the couch. She was in a sleeping bag. And I woke up late, like 2, 3 in the morning, and I needed to pee. And at this point, my grandparents did not have an indoor bathroom. It was still an outhouse, a couple hundred yards back off the back door. So I was on the couch, I sat up, and there's a window right behind the couch, and I looked out. And there was something by, there was a fir or an evergreen or fir tree, maybe 50 to 100 feet away from the back window. And by that tree, I saw something. I saw a large humanoid that was at least 7.5 to 8 feet tall. They were backlit by the moon. I could not see the face, but I could see the form of them. And it was humanoid. It had a high crest on its head. And I was looking at it. It was looking at me. I didn't feel any fear. And I turned my head like a dog hearing a new noise. And what I was looking at mimicked me. It would move its head the same way I was. And I was just, it was cold. There had not been any snow at all yet, but it was very cold. And I don't know how long we looked at each other. And like I said, I wasn't afraid. I didn't feel threatened. But at the same time, I was like, I'm not going to tempt fate. I'm not going to the outhouse. So I just lowered myself down from the window and laid back down on the couch and wait. I eventually went back to sleep. But the next day, first thing I did, went to the outhouse. And then I went and looked at the tree. And the tree was, I would have to say, 7.5 feet to 8 feet tall. But what I saw was a good 1.5 feet bigger than that. Like I said, I wasn't afraid. It didn't scare me. It didn't give me a vibe of anger or hate or anything. It was just more of a vibe of curiosity. But like I said, I held on to my pee till the morning because I was probably, if it was after Christmas, I was 8 years old. So this was between December and February of 1978. But still, and I've had a lot of experiences with other paranormal after that, but this was the only Bigfoot experience I had. So, if you want to look up where Sperry is, it was one of those little towns. My grandparents' farm, they ran both cattle and rented out tobacco land for sharecroppers. But yeah, that's my experience with the Bigfoot. And nobody can tell me different because it happened. I know it happened. And like I said, there was no fear involved. It was just curiosity.
Oh, absolutely. Did you see any tracks out there the next day?
No, that's the thing, is that it was very cold, so there were no tracks. And that was what I actually went looking for. If there's any evidence, any tracks, any fur, any scat, but no. And it's weird, that side of just probably about 100, 200 feet past that tree, there was a large grove of honey locust trees. I don't know if you're familiar with honey locust, but they have a lot of thorns. And I actually went looking to see if there's any disturbances or fur or anything. down there, and there wasn't, because Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you call them, they know that honey locusts are not a tree you want to mess with, because they have thorns up to 2 inches long sticking out of the bark and branches. But yeah, I found there was no physical evidence. There is just evidence of what I saw. And, when you're waking or dreaming, especially if you got a full bladder. I've had other paranormal experiences past that, but not another Bigfoot sighting. But that was, like I said, late 1977, early 78, near Cynthiana, Kentucky. A little town called Sperry.
Greg, thank you for coming up and sharing it. That's a new area for me to hear about, so I'll definitely make sure that's notated. But this conversation we had, do you mind if I use it in the Bigfoot podcast that I have?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. That's fine. Because I've got friends. We did a lot of investigations in paranormal, especially back, there was, if you look at old newspapers in Breathitt County, Kentucky, there was something called the Breathitt Dog Killer, which might have been a Bigfoot, might have been something else. But if you look at a lot of Bigfoot or other cryptids, they seem to follow waterways. But yeah,
oh, absolutely.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Use my story. I'm fine with that, and I will back that till I die, because I know I saw that. Like I said, I couldn't, because the moon was behind it. I couldn't make out a lot of details of the face or anything, but I knew how big it was. I knew what it looked like, and I knew, like I said, what got me the most was just the head, the crest on its head. But anyway, so yeah, go ahead and use it, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, Greg, for coming up. I appreciate it, sir. You have a good one.
All right, later.
Hey, man, how's it going tonight?
Hey, doing good. Are you coming up to share a Bigfoot story that you have?
Yes, sir, I am. I can't remember if I've shared this on your page or not. I'm following you already, so I think I may have. This is Flip, who lived out in Oregon, and we went out to the Tokeetee area. I had the experience where I was camping. I can't remember if I've told you the story or not already.
Are you the gentleman that had stuff in Washington, in Oregon?
No, only Oregon. We were up and down the entire coast working, but we weren't. I never had anything spooky happen other than in Oregon. I was also in Minnesota doing some logging up there for a while. I might have told you that.
This doesn't really sound. Let's go for it.
Then I don't think it was you. If you'll have me, here I am.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a man of all trades. I work all over the state doing all kinds of different stuff. At this point, I was out in Oregon working. It was just a 2-week gig. We were way out in the sticks. And you got to be in that higher elevation. And we're pretty arid. We were in the Illinois Valley. It's the wettest and the driest valley in the United States compared to rainfall. In the summer, it's just drier and 110 degree dry heat. And then in the winter, it just mists all year long, or all winter long. Anyway, so the Tokeetee Falls area is nearby where we were at. And we just drove a few hours to get there, and we had a couple of days off, so we were like, let's go somewhere pretty and camp. And this is the end of the season. There's no tourists around anymore, and we thought the campground was closed. It was one of those pay the envelope, drop it in the mailbox, a lockbox, and then go set up camp. They come check it in the morning. If you're not supposed to be there, they throw you out. And so we paid. We went in. We had to open a big gate. There was no one in, no staff whatsoever. No outdoor toilets, nothing like that. It was really roughing it, but you drive up a big old logging road, and there's a clearing up there that the grounds are at, and there was nobody there. And we're like, great, we got the place to ourselves. So we settled down, made dinner the first night, had a great night the first night. First time we had to have a drink in a week and a half. So we had some beer and settled in and had a comfortable night. Nothing happened. We woke up for the next morning, made breakfast, went for a hike, and there was a real nice creek down the mountain. So we went down the mountain to this creek, did some fishing, and came back up probably around 6 o'clock mountain time out there. Depending on how big the mountains around you are, it could get dark around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. And it was about the same time as it is now, actually. Now I'm thinking about it, maybe a couple of weeks earlier. But we went back up, and my buddy's car doors were all open. And we didn't even think to lock it. We're way out in the sticks. And all his car doors are open, the cooler's open. Nothing was missing that we could see, except for an axe that was thrown into the side of a dead tree. That was gone. That was the only thing. And we're like, probably some teenagers went through and, oh, look at this, let's take this. And I was thinking, oh, probably some kids. Who knows? There were some houses up on the ridge farther off and some four-wheeler trails, too. Now I'm thinking about it. So I don't even know who. Anyway, it was odd. And we're like, whatever. Maybe we put it. So maybe we didn't leave it there. Maybe we forgot about it somewhere else. And we had dinner, went to bed. Didn't have anything to drink that night because all we brought was 6 packs for each of us. So I went through that the first night. We went to bed, and I was about maybe 100 yards off from the main couple who had their separate car. And then I was riding with my buddy whose car doors were all left open. And I was 100 yards off from the first couple. I was maybe 200 feet away from my buddy on the other side. And we went to bed, no big deal. It was misting that night. It was cold. It was rainy. It was wet. And I had a Mylar sleeping bag that I hadn't used yet. And I was like, oh, this would be great. I'll test out the Mylar. And wrapped up, went to sleep. Woke up a couple hours later, just sweating buckets. If you ever use Mylar, you'll know it'll keep you warm, especially in 60-degree weather. It's not really for that. So I'm sweating buckets. So I take this silly thing off and get back into my normal sleeping bag. And I'm going back to sleep. And I start hearing this water running over rocks, like just a trickle, just a little crick. And it's moving pebbles, though. And I'm like, maybe I'm in a wash. Maybe I got to kick some pine cones or some pine needles out of the way and see if this is an indent of a wash, if there's pebbles, brookstone. I get out of the tent. I'm about ready to drag my tent up to higher ground. And I'm kicking everything around and in a 100-foot circle around my tent, halfway to my buddy's truck. And I'm not seeing any running water, and I can't figure out where it's coming from. And it just stops. And I'm like, that was really weird. And I went over and I saw my buddy's lights were off in his truck. So I'm like, I'm not going to bug him, see if he knows where it came from. He probably wouldn't be able to hear it anyway. And the fire's just smoldering. I didn't have to worry about it much. It was wet season. And so I said, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to bed. And I went back to bed. And at the time, I had a long gun, a .357 Magnum, and a big bushwhacking knife. And that's just for preface. But so I went to bed, and I always had my handgun next to me as an old revolver and my knife. And I'm sitting there going to bed, and I keep hearing all this movement around the tent. And I've been up in the woods so many times, I'm thinking it's deer. They probably smell the fire or whatever, or the food. They're probably investigating. Could be a bear, could be fox, could be raccoons, could be anything. And it starts getting louder, and now I'm hearing like bigger and bigger branches breaking, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe an elk? I don't know if they got them around this area, but they're definitely in the state. And it's a weird time of year. Maybe they're passing through, or bobcat or something. And it's getting louder and louder until it's within at least 50 feet of my tent. And it just stops. And I got all my lights off. It's dark. There's overcast. It's darker than dark. And all of a sudden, I hear these footsteps going bum, 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 running toward my tent. And it's 2 feet. It's not galloping. It's not trotting. It's not an elk. It's not a moose. It's not anything. It's not like that. Nothing quadrupedal. I've seen bear move along pretty good on 2 feet, but not like that. And by the time the thing got to me, I could feel the vibrations through the ground coming up through my camp mat. Whatever, like a bulldozer going by. It was huge. And I just remember your instinct kicks in. I just fetaled up into a little ball position and thinking I was about to get run over. And right before it hits at my tent, it just takes a hard left. Like I can hear it skid and hard left. And it runs off into the woods off the little trail I was sitting on. And I could hear it crashing through the bush. far and farther away. And I was like, that was really weird. That was probably a big old moose with an injury or something. That was weird. So I don't know if you ever camped in deep woods. You hear something, it's like, you know what I mean? Let's go to bed. And I don't know. I was falling back asleep. You ignore the stuff. Sometimes if you make a big scene, you're going to interest a bear. Just let them move through. They're not going to mess with you usually. And so I was just getting back to sleep. And then I heard something again going, not like a cat, but click. And I'm like, what is that? That's the weirdest sound. I thought maybe it was like my buddy had a ratcheting kettle. I thought maybe it was like the lid on that kettle or the spout on that kettle. And I'm like going through my brain, like, what? It's not sticks. What is that? And over and over. And I was so confused by it. And right as I'm like starting to think, I'm just going to get the flashlight. This has been stupid all night. I got to get some sleep. I'm going to go out there and scare whatever it is off. Right then I just start hearing this terrible, and just there was this big old felon sequoia tree out nearby. I was off closer to my buddy's truck, but in the opposite, twice the distance I was from him on the other side. And it was loud enough that I could feel it, but where that log was, because it started shredding this thing, and it was just tearing this log apart. And I didn't realize what it was doing until the next morning, because we went out and we saw that log that we drove in past. And I'm like, so I woke up the next morning, I'm telling my friends this, I'm like, did you hear all that commotion in the woods last night? And the folks that were way far off from us, they were like, we didn't hear it. All we heard was you hollering in the middle of the night. And I got out of the tent eventually, and I don't know what it was. I'm hollering at this thing, cussing it out. And I got back in my tent, went to bed because it stopped. So then the next morning, I was talking to my buddies who were making coffee, and I'm saying, did you hear all that racket last night? And the one couple said, all we heard was you. And then the dude in my truck said, I didn't hear anything until I got out of my car he went and got out to relieve himself. And he said he was squatting down in the bush and something growled at him so loud he felt it in his chest. And he said he scrambled back into his truck. He didn't even wipe. He said he just ran back into his truck, locked up, and that's all he really experienced. But he said it scared the willies out of him. And I was like, yeah, we were supposed to stay here another night. I'm like, I'm not staying here another night, guys. Me scared him, scared me. You guys can stay if you want. I'm leaving. And so we got up out of there, and when we were driving the truck, he had down an really old boxy Ford Explorer, the Bronco ripoffs. And we were driving back down the mountain, and when 200 feet down the road from where his car was parked was this big old rat and sequoia log. And the thing was just shredded. It wasn't the way it was the day before. It was just torn to pieces. It's soft. It's not like what it take. I could have done it, but like, why though? Bears will do that. They'll look for grubs and stuff, but just with all that other weird activity, I don't know what it was, man, but we don't go back up there again. Anyway.
Oh my goodness, dude. Wow, that's such a wild area too. Just to the east of it and southeast of that area, things get crazy in
that Tokeetee area.
And down by Prospect.
Yeah, you know where like the Tokeetee hot springs are. I don't know if you can see it on you got a Google map open? Oh. Yeah, so look up the hot springs. So we're on the ridge just to the southeast of that, on the southeast side of that ridge.
Gotcha.
There should be another creek that runs down on that southeast side if you're looking at the right hill.
Yep. Oh my goodness.
It's dense up there, man. It's dense up there.
I appreciate you coming up and sharing that. Is that a story I would be able to share? I have a Bigfoot podcast. Would I be able to share that on it?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Have a good night, buddy.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Hello. How are you?
Good. Good. What brings you up? Do you have a Bigfoot story to share?
Oh, where are you located at? Just general state.
From Iowa.
Okay, are you familiar with the Northern California territory?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cecilville.
Okay.
My uncle owned a claim up there. I was 18. Me, my family were staying up there for the summer. Nice area. Because grew up in California. Anyways. There was 9 of us sleeping outside on cots. And not like about 15, 20 feet away, there was my uncle's garden. So in the middle of the night, I woke up and I heard something in the garden, and it was eating. You could tell it was eating. And I reached over, tapped my cousin who had a spotlight, and I told him, hey man, when I say now, spotlight the garden. He goes, okay. So he grabbed a spotlight and I said now. He spotlighted it. Whatever it was stood up in the middle of the garden and took off running the other way on two legs. So you tell me. It wasn't a bear, and it was big and had dark hair. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot. Up in the mountains, they talk about Bigfoot all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like Cecilville is south of the Marble Mountain Wilderness area. It's in a really remote area, it kind of looks like.
Yeah, you got to go up from Callahan and go up that way on the mountain. I don't 11, 12 miles, maybe more. It's been a long time. But yeah, it's high altitude too.
Oh, really? How high up would you think?
My uncle's claim was 9,000 feet.
Wow. Ooh, so how long did you see it when it ran off?
Maybe 3 seconds.
Okay.
Because it just stood up and took off running.
Absolutely. Did you get an estimate for how tall it probably was?
Oh, let's see. There was a guy who owned a claim about 10 miles down the way. He was 6'9", and this thing was bigger than him.
Wow. Was that guy having issues too with the same thing?
He never talked about it. He never
Gotcha.
talked about pretty much anything. The only thing he would talk about was that a wolverine got in his cabin and tore it up. And the ranger said there was no such thing as wolverines in Northern Cal at that time. He said, I've seen stuff. He goes, I'd tell you. He goes, I'll tell you, I've seen stuff. He goes, you won't
Absolutely.
believe me. Okay.
The next morning, did everyone talk about what happened that night where you guys saw something?
Yeah. My dad, who drove logging truck with his brother when they were younger, said that they would see stuff cross the road, like ahead of them when they're going down the mountain road. And he said, "Did you get up there and it'd be gone?" So my dad knew that there was things up there that move around, show up now and then.
Absolutely. Well, man, I appreciate you coming up. What year approximately was this?
88.
88. Okay. Wow. Wild stuff. Hey, I've been asking people if I can use conversations tonight. I have a Bigfoot podcast. Would that be all right with this one?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. Awesome. I appreciate you coming up, sir.
Have a good one.
You too. Hi there. How are you?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Hey, just hanging out. Are you coming up to share a Bigfoot story that you got?
Yes, sir. Actually, this happened when I was a little bit younger, and I was about like 14 at the time, and I was living in East Texas, Alto, Texas, and it was this little small town, and me and my dad and everybody moved into my papa's house. He recently passed away and stuff, and it's on a Indian burial ground or something like that. Basically, one day I was just outside, and you know how boys are when they're young, just outside doing stuff. And we have this clear pasture that has like trees on both sides of it. And out in the middle, there's this shed, like old shed. And I was just walking out there one day, and I seen something huge. It was white on all fours, and it was bigger than the whole shed itself. Like, it was on all fours, bigger than the shed. And there's nothing in Texas, and as far to my knowledge that I know of, that is gonna be white that big. And so I told my dad to come out there, and he was just walking slow, and he got over there, and I was like, do you see it? And he was like, he brushed it off like he didn't see nothing. And so that night we go out there, and he has these two big pieces of plywood or whatever. So he takes me out there. I'm like, Dad, what are we doing, bro? And he's like, we're gonna find out what you saw. So we're just sitting there, and he hits the wood together, and we're just sitting there for a minute. And I kid you not, to our left in the wood line, we hear something sounded like an elephant walking through the woods. Like, you could hear and feel every single step this thing was taking in the woods. I don't know what it was, but it was huge. And I have one more thing to say. My Uncle Tristan had came over, and he was outside, and he came running inside one day screaming, saying he heard something make a whole bunch of animal noises at one time, different noises, and it yelled so loud he could feel it in his chest. And best thing he could describe it as a lion's roar. Like, it was so powerful. But yeah, that's my personal Bigfoot experience, and I believe he's real.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. What year did that happen in?
I was about 13 at the time, so 2013.
Wow. Yeah. That area is just north of a really group of active forests. You might know them, like Davy Crockett National Forest and Angelina.
Yes, sir. I've been to those. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. That's super active down there. But man, I appreciate you coming up. Is this a conversation I can share on the Bigfoot podcast that I have?
Of course, man. I appreciate you giving me the time to come up here and share my experience.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and you have a great rest of your night.
Yes, sir. You too.
Yelso, I have never tried gifting, but let me tell you about something that happened to me. When I was in an area that was active, it is still active actually, in Iowa last year, and I was solo camping. One morning I woke up and there was a picnic table right outside my tent, and I was the only one in the forest. No one else was in there. It's the weirdest thing. There's a plastic fork with a squirrel tail stuck through the tines of the fork. I don't know if that's considered a gift to me, but it's one of the weirdest things I've ever experienced. So I've never tried gifting. I'll tell you that. Before we wrap this episode, I want to say something directly to a very specific group of listeners. If you're in the military, any branch or forces, and if you've seen something that no one can explain, or if you're a national park ranger or forestry worker who's been told to stay quiet, or if you're a pilot who's seen something strange down on the ground, or if you're with the FBI, a federal agency, or working intelligence, and you stumbled upon something you're not allowed to talk about, and if you're a firefighter, paramedic, or search and rescue responder who's heard screams or found tracks that didn't make sense, if you're in the logging industry, on a remote oil field, or a trucker with government contracts, and you've had something happen that you've never told a soul, and if you're a biologist, a wildlife specialist, or a field researcher under contract who has found evidence you're not allowed to report, if you're a pastor, a missionary, or someone on a spiritual retreat, and you saw something that shook your faith, or if you work in the shadows, CIA, NSA, or anything with clearance, and you've seen what the public hasn't, then I want to talk to you. Even if it's anonymous, you can reach me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. The world needs to hear what you've been forced to carry alone, and you're not alone. You've got the story. We've got the mic. See you in the woods. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Every encounter we share reminds us that the world is bigger and stranger than we think, and that the truth is often hiding just beyond the tree line. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, hit the bell so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with a friend who's into mysteries, monsters, or the unexplained. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcast, please follow the show there and leave us a 5-star positive review, because all that helps more people discover the show. And remember, if you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot sighting, please, I'd love to hear from you. So email me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's start the conversation. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, check out our membership community over at www.bigfootsocietypodcast.com. And that's where you can hear tomorrow's episode today, early and ad-free, and members-only episodes every week. Also, it's a place to connect with other people that are into the Bigfoot subject as much as you are. Thanks again for following along with the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there. And see you in the woods.